Could this be Robert De Niro's last mafia film? Could it be Robert De Niro's last film? Could this be the first film where Robert De Niro decides he needs to play more than one person? Could this be the last film Robert De Niro decides he needs to play more than one person? Yes. Yes, it should be at least that one. So The Alto Knights stars Robert De Niro as Robert De Niro playing across from Robert De Niro. It was directed by Barry Levinson and written by Nicholas Pileggi. So it's got a massive amount of pedigree behind it as far as mob movies goes. The Goodfellas, The Irishman, hell, pieces of the Bronx Tale, literally with Robert De Niro and the lady that played his wife in that film. She's playing a wife again, one of his wives in this film. So the premise, you got two mafia head guys played by Robert De Niro in the same movie. There's not a whole lot of scenes where they interact. When they do, I think that's when the movie is at its weakest for me. It felt like, someone really trying that for the first time. I feel like that came across, especially when you've seen Robert De Niro's pedigree in so many other films, including mafia films. But he does an okay job. But when he's in the element of each one of these characters off, when they're not interacting with each other, when they're off doing their own part of the story, he's really, really good in them. I just think that other than the attraction of having people come to see a mob movie with Robert De Niro playing two guys, there's not really a whole lot of point to it. I think that if he would have played one and they would have got another high pedigree mob actor to play the other, I think it would have actually drawn more people in. So he plays Frank Costello and Vito Genovese. And I'm a big guy when it comes to like Lucky Luciano, The Formation of Vegas, Boardwalk Empire, like all these mob shows. And all of these shows, it's fun to watch them and then go down the YouTube rabbit hole or watch the old A&E or History Channel documentaries on all of these figureheads. It's kind of anxious to finally see a really good film bringing this rivalry of these two dudes to the big screen, because you've already had so many films with Al Capone and that kind of thing that it was nice to see more on this Alto Knights social club thing. I admit I never really even heard of that, and all the shit I've read and watched, I don't know how much liberty is taken with making these two people that Robert De Niro is playing seem like they were best buddies. I don't get that from the stuff that I've watched, but who knows? I can't wait to see all those facts versus fiction things come out for this movie. I'm also going to get this one out of the way. The movie is 2 hours. It's not over 2 hours, but it fills its runtime. And again, with a mafia movie or a courtroom drama, you expect, it to be a slow burn or a talkie, that kind of, just a conversational piece and gravity of the score and the camera angles to kind of keep you captivated in all of this. I didn't feel that way at all in this movie. I feel like some of the camera angles are just like spinning around. I don't know. I didn't enjoy the cinematography of the movie. And I think maybe a lot of that, like, disorienting of certain scenes, especially when Robert De Niro's talking to Robert De Niro, is done to keep you more, I guess, engaged on, oh my God, this actor's doing this dual role thing, but you can tell he is. That being said, I won't say the movie's a waste of time or isn't intriguing. I mean, I was definitely bringing the median age of my theater down, but it was very full for, again, an early afternoon on a Thursday. So that's to the movie's credit. I don't know how well that's going to translate into people seeing it at nighttime, people that, were born this century. See when the box office and the Metacritic and the Cine score and all that stuff kind of comes out on it, next week. Yeah, I liked it. I mean, it was okay. I think it took a little too much trying to cram so much of this really dynamic historical story into a 2-hour block and still dragged in certain parts. There were some scenes in these cars when they're driving to this meeting at the end of this movie that I won't spoil for the the history people out there, because there is a really cool scene that goes down, but it leans really heavy on a perceived rumor in the mafia world that somebody set up a certain ambush, and none of that's ever been proven. But again, you go to see a movie and you take the liberty with something like that to make it a movie and make it interesting. And I feel like if they were going to do that, then they could have done more things to make some of the other stuff that kind of left out. One of the things, it's not really a spoiler because it's not in the movie, but Frank in real life was really big on like slot machines. He was one of the main dudes behind that. And when they became outlawed and taken out of New York, he was one of the guys that like originally said, well, let's migrate them to New Orleans. None of that's touched on in this movie. And I think that would have been a cool little, they talk about gambling, but it's a very general, label term a lot on this. And little things that I think find that interesting. I also think they do in the very beginning of the film, they bring up like Lucky Luciano and I think Meyer Lansky and some of the original, big bads of the early mafia world that transitioned it from the like depressionary mob throughout the World War II into the 1950s mob where this takes place. I mean, those figureheads were still around at this time and were very involved in this feud between these two New York bosses. So basically, to sum it up without spoiling too much, one guy's a boss, he gets in trouble, has to go overseas during World War II. And while he's gone, his supposed teenage young adult friend takes his place as the main guy. And when he gets back, he's got to face some murder trial stuff. Beats that. Again, that's not a huge part of the movie. It happens very early on in it. And now he wants his spot back. And the rest of the movie takes place with them vying to get that, and the murder and all that ensues. And all of that's true. That really fucking happened. I think this would have been way better served as a gritty, badass miniseries. Or like an Irishman styled Netflix movie that's like 4 fucking hours long with an intermission. This needed that. This needed that treatment, and the audience would have been okay with it. They would have been like, oh, it's so long. The people that's going to bitch about that in this kind of historical drama action movie is the people that aren't probably going to go see it anyway. So I feel like a lot of it was neutered, and then what was there was just very teaches you a lot about these guys, and because of that, I would give it a... That's a fair rating. D for De Niro. Anyway, I have another movie review I should be hopefully dropping here by Sunday or Monday. It's a little less controversy in this film. Anyway, I'm going to go stitch up some other stuff. It's not going to be my thing. I got like a whole notepad full of these things I want to be my cool catchphrase, but I just don't know what that cool catchphrase is going to be. But, roll the song. Woo!